Hi, everyone. I'm Melody Muraca.
And I'm Bill C.
Welcome to the Into the Heart of U2 podcast, where two longtime fans discuss U2 music album by album and tour by tour, the fan experience, and the perception of U2 and cultural consciousness.
Yeah, Melody and I, we came of age with U2. We experienced their awkward growing pains in lockstep with our own, in real time, as it happened. We bought the records when they came out. We saw the tours as they happened. We know the history because their history is part of ours. We lived it. And Melody, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try and get to the bottom of whether U2 is one of the greats of all time, or are the haters right after all?
That's right. You know, a few months ago, Bill and I were talking and the subject of U2 came up, which isn't unusual since we've both been fans of the band for about 40 years and friends for almost as long. But during that conversation, we started to take a long lens view of the band's career.
Yeah, as we sit here in 2023, on the heels of two, maybe three underwhelming records, and at least a decade now of some pretty severe blowback from the aforesaid haters, there's reason for concern about what U2's legacy will ultimately be. Because it feels like the further we get from groundbreaking records like The Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby, and iconic performances like Red Rocks and Live Aid, or, the innovative Zoo TV tour, U2's legacy has become more about how much Bono annoys the hell out of people, or how they planted their record into everyone's Apple Music library without consent. And it's gotten to the point where if anyone even mentions U2, they have to qualify it like, oh, I used to like them, but after war, they sold out. Okay. So first off, everyone should know, Melody here was the founder and editor of a notable U2-centric fanzine in the States, which included interviews of U2 along with many other bands. She's also a great singer and has worked on her own projects as well as with multiple artists, so she knows what it means to be a musician in her own right. So, Melody, why are you doing this?
Well, for me, being a longtime fan, I obviously do love most of their music, but it's a clear-eyed type of love. And what I'm really interested in doing here with you, Bill, is taking a close and critical look at the history and evolution of the band's music and look at it in the context of the time in which it was written, how art and cultural history have shaped U2's music, and how U2's creative output and influence have in turn shaped the musical and cultural climate of the past 40 years or so. All right, so that's my reason. So what I'd like everyone to know about Bill, before he talks about why he's doing this, is he was the front man of Divine Weeks, which in my opinion was one of the best indie rock bands to come out of Los Angeles in the late 1980s. And he's continued to release records as a solo artist. He's also the author of a great book called 33 Days, which is about Divine Week's first tour, which all of you should check out. So now I ask you, Bill, why are you doing this?
Honestly, because I think you and I, having grown up in LA and having seen so many important moments with this band from the very beginning, I think we can bring some much needed context and a fresh perspective to the telling of U2's history. And by doing it here in a podcast format that's fun and interactive and more relatable than just reading another U2 biography.
Yeah, this will be more of a free-form format to discuss some of our personal experiences seeing the band, to some of the broader issues dogging the band. For example, they've always been savvy at business, but the business appeared to mostly serve the art. However, certain decisions over the past decade or so seem to be tipping that balance. You mentioned earlier, Bill, there's iTunes Gate. And then, of course, there's the big one happening now, which is Larry Noe's showing at the Las Vegas Sphere. I get the company line that the opportunity was too big, too important artistically to turn down, but I don't think the U2 of 20 or maybe even 10 years ago would have made this decision.
Well, Melody, as we record this, the band shows at the Sphere in Vegas are about to start. And yes, I will be going to a couple of those.
I will too.
But I must say I'm a little dubious. I'm afraid I see these residencies in Vegas as a sign of things to come, and not in a good way. No more tours. Audience come and see the bands. Whether it's Adele, Katy Perry, or Britney Spears, and now U2, it's not dissimilar to the Fat Elvis period. And for me, no matter how spectacular visually the shows are at the Sphere, it feels like U2 following others rather than what they've always done, which is being at the forefront of innovation when it came to touring.
Yeah, that could be true, but I mean, what do you suggest they do instead to revamp their career trajectory?
Well, they take too long now to make a record. They second guess themselves endlessly with this desperate need to stay relevant and achieve a level of commercial success that's no longer attainable. Plus, it's beneath you. Why do you care so much? Stop acting like an aging starlet. Enough with the 10 producers and the songwriting team and all the fussy production touches, the tra-la-la backing vocals added here and the sound bites dropped there. Freaking Pro Tools and vocoders run amok. They're Jay-Zing themselves to death. You're U2. The only thing worth chasing now is your muse. Look to Neil Young as a model for operation. Just believe in yourself and press record. I'd listen to that record.
I would too. But ultimately, the big question we're asking here is, are they blowing their legacy? Have the mistakes they've made endangered their greatness?
Well, it does go to a bigger question about artists that inevitably fail to sustain greatness. That is to say, does a band's output that becomes a series of diminishing returns tarnish its legacy? I mean, does Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience really make you unhear or unfeel the Joshua Tree or Octoon Baby? Personally, I don't think so, but I do think U2 in particular gets criticized disproportionately to other bands. It's kind of always been that way. It's just easier now because they haven't made a great album in years and probably won't ever again.
Well, I hope that last bit of your sentence isn't true. But okay, let's put this whole thing in context.
Yeah.
What we're going to do, we're going to start from the beginning with their early demos and singles and the debut album Boy. And then with each record, we'll talk about what the musical and cultural landscape was like at the time. We'll examine the making of the records and the songs, discuss the decisions that went into promoting the record and what the tours were like, and what the band's stature was moving forward.
Yeah, so that's our manifesto. That's what we're about. We launched September 29th. We are on Twitter at U2 Podcast and on Instagram at Into the Heart of U2 Podcast. And we do have a Facebook page called, you guessed it, Into the Heart of U2 Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd be eternally grateful if you'd pass along word.
We would indeed. Okay, we'll have the Boy, October, and War episodes up on your favorite streaming platforms, starting again the opening night of the Sphere on September the 29th, and then we'll be releasing one episode every Friday thereafter. So check all that out on the Into the Heart of U2 podcast.